Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. India's general elections move into fifth gear. Campaigning shifts to 49 seats spread across 8 states and union territories. Ladakh also polls to the polls on the 20th of May. US pledges $2 billion in foreign military aid to Ukraine. NATO leaders to meet in Brussels to discuss measures as Russian troops advance towards Kharkiv. Israel's Prime Minister says Hamas's elimination is an imperative for an alternative government to emerge in Palestine. And Bharat Pavilion has been inaugurated at the Cannes Film Festival. Renowned filmmakers and industry leaders celebrate the essence of Indian cinema. Let's get you the latest on the world's largest democratic election in India. Campaigning continues to gain momentum ahead of the fifth phase of India's general elections. Leaders from various political parties held rallies on Wednesday. 49 seats are going to the polls in this phase, which is on May 20. Let's look at this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday attended a large-scale event in Dindori, Maharashtra, where he assured the farmers of accelerated development and growth in the state. The PM discussed his vision for a Vikasit Bharat, expressing his extreme disregard towards the opposition. PM Modi said the partnership of Congress and fake Shiv Sena is a partnership of misdoing. PM Modi remarked that the fake Shiv Sena has shattered every dream of Bala Saheb Thackeray.
बाला साहब ठाकरे का सपना था अयोध्या में भव्य राम मंदिर का निर्माण हो। ये सपना पूरा हुआ, लेकिन इससे सबसे ज्यादा चीड़ ये नकली शिवसेना को हो रही है।
PM Modi also held a public meeting in Mumbai, Northeast and Kalyan. BJP leader and Union Home Minister Amit Shah addressed the public meetings and roadshow in Orissa. He also addressed an election rally in West Bengal's Serampore. Addressing the rally, Amit Shah said, "The people have to decide who to choose for the welfare of the country." Congress leader Rahul Gandhi addressed a public meeting in Orissa. He said a list of families will be finalized with the women from each family chosen for an amount of 8,500 rupees each in their accounts.
हर गरीब परिवार में से एक महिला का नाम चुना जाएगा। करोड़ों महिलाओं का नाम लिस्ट में होगा। 4 जुलाई को 1 महीने की किस्त 8,500 रुपए उसके बैंक अकाउंट में मिलेगा।
Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi addressed a public meeting in Uttar Pradesh's Rai Bareli. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge held a joint press conference with Samajwadi Party Chief Akhilesh Yadav in Lucknow. Kharge also held a public meeting in Rai Bareli. Aam Aadmi Party Supremo and Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal held a roadshow in support of Congress candidate from Chandni Chowk Lok Sabha seat, Jai Prakash Agarwal, at Model Town area. Meanwhile, BJP delegation led by Dr. S. Jaishankar met the Election Commission of India at the ECI office. BJP has brought again the violation of Model Code of Conduct by the Congress and other parties. India's general elections have moved into the fifth gear, and the campaigning has shifted to 49 seats spread across 8 states and union territories. India's largest constituency by area, Ladakh, also polls on the 20th of May. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, Bengal is known for its famous rasagolas, but there are many hidden sweets also, which are gems across different parts of the state. Here's a story on a sweet called monohora that was introduced in Bengal some 2 centuries ago by the then Nawab of Bengal, and it still resonates in the hearts of people. Take a look at Dibyendu Mondal's report.
What I'm savoring right now is something known as monohara. It's a sweet that is famous in Bengal, which loosely translates to something that touches your heart. And this is the Jonai Bazar area in the Shrirampur Lok Sabha constituency. And let me take you inside this humble sweet shop, which is about 2 centuries old. I'm being told that this shop is somewhere about 180 years old. It was somewhere in the 18th century when this sweet, which you see in my hand, monohara, was introduced by the Danish who ruled this place back then, after which it went to the British. But ever since then, this man and his generation have been making this sweet here. And in this season of politics here in Shrirampur, where both the BJP and the Trinamool Congress are fighting it out against each other in a tough battle. Of course, the CPIM is also there. It's a tough tripartite fight here in this Shrirampur constituency. But will this sweet rule over all the candidates, and the people will of course come to know on the day of polling, and of course on the 4th of June. With camera person PK, this is Dibyendu Mondal from Shrirampur in West Bengal for DD India.
And Gautam Roy is now joining us from Ladakh. We'll also be joined by Shishir Shella in a little while from Mumbai. Gautam, what is the strategic importance of Ladakh, the Lok Sabha constituency?
Well, Mark, it's a good question, because Ladakh is as strategic as it gets, because on one side there's China and the other Pakistan, and for long there have been sort of accusations, allegations and murmurs about Chinese incursions and aggression, and a lot has been focused upon in terms of increasing access to the border areas, to the line of actual control as well. A lot of infrastructure has been built up in the last 10 years. I, in fact, took a look at one of them, which is a road that goes from Nimo to Darcha, which is in Himachal Pradesh. And that is a road that shortens the time and the distance that is traveled from Manali to as far as Leh by as much as 8 hours, and that is critical for the movement of the armed forces as well. Plus, it's also a safer route for the armed forces, because the Leh-Manali highway is a little more vulnerable to the enemy, and that's a third axis that's been developed. Similarly, the road to Pangong has been widened. There are villages that have been better communicated, both in terms of roads and mobile telephony as well. So access for the armed forces has been increased, and that is an issue that the BJP is taking to the people of Ladakh as well in these elections. It's a three-way fight this time around between the BJP, the Congress and the National Conference, which have put up a joint candidate from Leh. But there are different kind of aspirations that the people of Kargil have had. And because of that, since the Congress and the NC put up a candidate jointly from Leh, Kargil, the unit of the NC and the Congress both revolted, and they're backing an independent candidate who used to be in the National Conference at one time. So it's become a three-way fight, and it's going to be pretty interesting which way it goes on the 28th of May.
That's interesting, Gautam. I was looking at the history of the Lok Sabha constituency, and it seems that independents have done reasonably well. Of course, though the BJP has been holding this constituency for since 2014, this time around they've changed their candidate, and ironically the Congress candidate seems to have the same name as the previous BJP candidate, but he's not quite the same man.
Yes, it is complicated for people like you and me who are sitting on the outside and looking at the competition in Ladakh, because you were right to mention that the independents have been dominant. Even before that, till about the 90s, it was the Congress that was dominant, and then there was a phase of the independents as well. And the last two times, as you mentioned, the BJP won the election, but by very thin margins. It was 0.1% in 2024, just about 36 votes, and then it increased to about 8.6% in 2019. But that candidate is no longer there in the fray because the people here have stronger aspirations. They want to be more than a union territory. There's a demand for being included in the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution, where the people of Ladakh, their identity, their resources will have larger protection. There are demands of statehood that have been around as well. And these are the aspirations that have made things a little more difficult for all these candidates who are in the fray. They've been making all kinds of promises that things will be delivered to the people of Ladakh, and they will be tested really hard on the 20th.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Gautam Roy, joining us from Ladakh, which is the largest constituency by area in the country. Now let's move on to our next story. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar emphasized that the Chabahar project will benefit the entire region and people should not take a narrow view of it after the US warned of potential risk of sanctions. He also pointed out that the US itself had appreciated the larger relevance of the Chabahar port in the past.
I did see some remarks which were made, but I think it's a question of, communicating and convincing and, getting people to understand that this is actually for everybody's benefit. I don't think people should take a narrow view of it, and they have not done so in the past. So if you look at even US's own attitude to Chabahar in the past, the US has been appreciative of the fact that Chabahar has a larger relevance. So, we will work at it.
What's still to come here on DD India News are: Israeli Defense Forces intensify military operations in eastern Rafah. The US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken visits Ukraine, announces $2 billion in military support. France to declare a state of emergency in New Caledonia.
We are in Cannes, the famous city on the French Riviera. The 77th edition of the Cannes Film Festival is here. So soak into 12 days of world cinema and the hottest fashion trends. The famous 24 steps leading to the Palais des Festivals, where most of the cinema at this festival is screened, are beckoning. Join me, Munmun Bhattacharya, as I take you through all the buzz around the festival and on India's participation in it, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Now, amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asserted that eliminating Hamas in the Gaza Strip is imperative for the emergence of an alternative Palestinian governance. Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Forces have intensified military operations in eastern Rafah following the elimination of a Hamas training compound. Let's look at this report.
Well, a big focus for this meeting of NATO's military committee will, of course, be Ukraine. We know that Russian invading forces are moving closer to the second largest city in Ukraine, in Kharkiv. We know that Ukrainian forces have been able to push back some of that Russian advance in some of the neighboring villages, but it will be a real concern. We also know that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has cancelled several international trips, including one to Spain and possibly one to here in Belgium, very much concerned with the situation in his country. And that will be the case for those NATO military leaders, the more than 30 members of the NATO alliance gathering, those top military commanders coordinating their efforts both for the defense of the alliance but also for support for Ukraine. We know that has been a top priority for Secretary General and for Rob Bauer, the chair of NATO's military commander as well. And we know the United States announcing just in the last couple of days an extra $2 billion in military support for Ukraine, certainly a much needed boost. We know the Ukrainians have also said they need more equipment to push back this Russian advance. Now, As I mentioned, the defence of the NATO alliance will also be a really important topic discussed by these military leaders here in Brussels. We know that as a defensive alliance, it is now renewing what it calls its regional plans, its plans for the defence of Europe should there be an attack on this continent. That will be discussed all in the run-up to a summit of NATO leaders in Washington, D.C. in July. But in the short term, the focus remains very squarely on Ukraine. Alex Kadier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
Well, that was a story by Alex Kadier about how the NATO leaders are going to be meeting in Brussels to discuss defense and of the alliance and also their support for Ukraine. And this comes as the Russian invaders, as Russia has, continued to advance towards the second largest city of Kharkiv. But let's go back to that story that I was talking about earlier about the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, where the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had asserted that eliminating Hamas in the Gaza Strip is an imperative for the emergence of an alternative Palestinian governance, and that the Israeli Defense Forces have intensified their operations in eastern Rafah. Let's look at this report.
Amidst the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asserted that eliminating Hamas in the Gaza Strip is imperative for the emergence of alternative Palestinian governance. Israeli Defense Forces have intensified military operations in eastern Rafah following the elimination of a Hamas training compound. Civilians in parts of Rafah have been ordered to evacuate, with nearly 450,000 people fleeing the city since May 6th. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken emphasizes the need for Israel to present a clear and concrete plan for the post-conflict Gaza, warning of the potential for a power vacuum leading to chaos.
We know and have seen where that's led all too many times for the people of Gaza and for Israel. And we also can't have anarchy and a vacuum that's likely to be filled by chaos. That only underscores the imperative of having a clear, concrete plan for the day after the conflict in Gaza, in terms of governance, in terms of security, in terms of rebuilding Gaza for its people.
On the other front, Israeli Defense Force released a video claiming to show a strike on a Hezbollah senior field commander, Hussein Ibrahim Mekki.
Well, the United States will provide Ukraine with $2 billion in foreign military financing. This is what the Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Wednesday at a joint press conference in Kiev alongside the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. A U.S. official has also said that $1.6 billion of the $2 billion was earmarked in the supplemental funding bill signed by the U.S. President Joe Biden last month, and that the remaining $400 million is from existing foreign military financing funds that had not yet been allocated.
We will provide an additional $2 billion in foreign military financing for Ukraine. And we put this together in a first-of-its-kind defense enterprise fund. And it has three components. One is to provide weapons today, so this will assist Ukraine in acquiring those weapons. Two is to focus as well on something that Dmytro just talked about, investing in Ukraine's defense industrial base, helping to strengthen even more its capacity to produce what it needs for itself, but also to produce for others. And finally, using this fund to help Ukraine purchase military equipment from other countries, not just the United States, for Ukraine's use.
Well, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on a visit to Ukraine, and he showed the U.S.'s support for that country. And as we said there, we saw in that report just a short while ago that they had a joint press conference in Kiev with the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba and Blinken announcing $2 billion in foreign military aid to Ukraine. He also said that the support would be aimed at investing in Ukraine's industrial base.
We will provide an additional $2 billion in foreign military financing for Ukraine. And we put this together in a first-of-its-kind defense enterprise fund. And it has three components. One is to provide weapons today, so this will assist Ukraine in acquiring those weapons. Two is to focus as well on something that Dmytro just talked about, investing in Ukraine's defense industrial base, helping to strengthen even more its capacity.
Well, earlier Antony Blinken had watched grain being transferred to a truck for shipping out of Ukraine at a site supported by the U.S. Agency for International Development. Blinken praised the resilience of Ukraine's grain production in the face of its conflict with Russia. But Ukraine has claimed that Russian forces were establishing positions in Ukraine's Vovchansk town, which is in Kharkiv region. With these military advancements in the northern region, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has postponed all upcoming foreign visits. Meanwhile, speaking about U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to Kiev, Russia's foreign ministry on Wednesday said that it will destroy all military equipment supplied to Kiev by the United States.
It is obvious that the United States continue twisting arms of their so-called allies, demanding them to solve the assigned tasks immediately. No military equipment, we'd like to disappoint them, will save the Zelensky regime from collapse. All of the military equipment supplied to Ukraine will be destroyed.
And DD India's Dasha Chernyshova sent us this report from Moscow.
Moscow repeats its position that it is demilitarizing Ukraine, and to do that, Moscow says it is destroying all the Western-supplied weapons. So the Russian Foreign Ministry is only reiterating its position. Having said that, keep in mind that Russia is now advancing on the Kharkiv direction. We've heard from the Russian MOD that they have now under their control 2 more villages, the village of Glboka as well as Yukianits in the Kharkiv region. That brings to 12 the number of villages that have been, as Moscow calls it, liberated on this direction since the 10th of May. Also on the Zaporizhia direction, we understand that Moscow now says it has under its control the village of Rabotina. More advancements on the battlefield, Moscow says, because Russia is on the upper footing at the moment. And as Russia has appointed a new Minister of Defense, Andrei Belousov, the expectation is that Moscow will be streamlining the produced weapons to the battlefield. So certainly the understanding at the moment is that Moscow will continue to demilitarize Ukraine and thus destroy the supplied weapons from the West.
Well, Russia's President Vladimir Putin will visit China on Thursday and hold talks with his counterpart Xi Jinping over regional issues and cooperation in various fields. The two leaders are expected to sign a joint statement and several bilateral documents. It will be Putin's first foreign trip since he was sworn in for a 5th term as Russia's president on the 7th of May. Before his visit, the Russian president in an interview said that he backed China's plan for a peaceful settlement of the Ukraine crisis and said that Beijing had a full understanding of what lay behind this crisis. Well, Boeing is preparing to launch its first crewed spacecraft. This is with a crew, that is, using the Starliner craft. And this launch has been delayed twice already, once due to a faulty valve and then to a helium leak. The Starliner is now scheduled to launch no sooner than May the 21st. But when it does eventually lift off, it will make history, and on board will be an Indian-American pilot. Here's DD India's Tony Waterman with more.
Sunita Williams may not be a household name, but in the space industry, she's highly regarded as one of the best. She is a former naval test pilot and a veteran astronaut with 2 previous missions under her belt. She has already spent 322 days in space with more than 5,100 Earth orbits and 7 spacewalks. And she is only the 2nd American woman of Indian descent to go into space. She will be one of 2 test pilots on this mission aboard the Boeing Starliner, the first time the spacecraft will be carrying humans to the International Space Station. And getting there is expected to take some 25 hours, during which Williams and her colleague Butch Wilmore will run a series of tests on the spacecraft. Their mission is to make sure the Starliner is fit to ferry astronauts to and from the ISS safely under NASA's Commercial Crew Program. This is a program focused on developing a safe, cost-effective, and commercial space transport sector in the U.S. This is a project 10 years in the making, and Boeing is years behind schedule and more than $1 billion over budget. But at a press conference ahead of the launch, Williams said she's happy that liftoff is imminent.
Both of us have flown in space before, so it's not the first time going to space. So it's nice to be able to use the expertise that we had in both the Soyuz and the shuttle to work on a developmental program. I mean, we've both called it before a test pilot's dream, because it's really all the work that goes in before you actually get to do the thing, because you have already studied and know with the engineers what could not happen, fix whatever needs to be fixed. All that work, all that preparation has actually been really rewarding.
Williams and Wilmore have played a key role in the development of certain aspects of the spacecraft, especially the display boards inside and the suits that they'll be wearing. In terms of what they'll be taking with them on this 10-day journey, Sunita has been known to eat samosas in space, a nod, of course, to her Indian heritage. Her dad is from Mumbai, but this time around, she says she'll be bringing some naval keepsakes and a few objects from an elementary school in her hometown. One thing she says she will not be doing this time around is running any marathons in space, something that she has done in the past. Tony Waterman in Austin, Texas, reporting for DD India.
Well, France is set to declare a state of emergency in New Caledonia after at least 4 people were killed in riots over a change in voting rules. The French President Macron's office said the state of emergency would be adopted after a cabinet meeting, which will be held shortly. Over 130 arrests have been made so far. Lawmakers in Paris voted in favor of a bill that allows French residents who have lived in New Caledonia for 10 years to vote in provincial elections. With 351 votes in favor, the French government said that change is needed to make elections democratic. DD India's Ross Cullen reports.
Emergency was announced by the President Emmanuel Macron in a communique released by the Élysée Palace. That's the French presidency on Wednesday afternoon. I've got the communique here. I'll read you some of what Emmanuel Macron set out in that official statement. He said that he thanked the politicians from across the spectrum who've been calling for calm. He also said he wanted to pay tribute to the security services who have been working to try to protect the population in New Caledonia. He did say that all violence is intolerable and will be met with an implacable response to restore order, confirming that state of emergency is in place. And all of the rioting and the looting that we have seen began on Monday in response to protests that got violent because there have been demonstrations against constitutional reform. That reform was passed here in Paris by MPs on Tuesday night, local time. The unrest has been taking place before the vote, during the vote, and now on Wednesday after the vote as well. That reform will allow French residents who've been living in New Caledonia for at least 10 years to be able to vote in local elections, something that native New Caledonians thinks would potentially dilute the vote of indigenous people from the island, the indigenous Kanak people. And so we have seen police stations attacked, cars set on fire, and general unrest as well, with hundreds of people injured and hundreds of arrests in New Caledonia, which is now confirmed on Wednesday under a state of emergency. Ross Cullen in Paris, reporting for DD India.
Well, still to come here on DD India News Hour. We'll discuss the proposal to privatize state industries in Pakistan. Still in Pakistan, Imran Khan gets bail, but he still stays in jail. And Sri Lanka is in discussion with India to establish an arms manufacturing unit in the island nation.
We are in Cannes, the famous city on the French Riviera. The 77th edition of the Cannes Film Festival is here. So soak into 12 days of world cinema and the hottest fashion trends. The famous 24 steps leading to the Palais des Festivals, where most of the cinema at this festival is screened, are beckoning. Join me, Munmun Bhattacharya, as I take you through all the buzz around the festival and on India's participation in it, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. India's general election moves into the fifth gear. Campaigning shifts to 49 seats spread across 8 states and union territories. Ladakh also polls on the 20th of May. The US pledges $2 billion in foreign military aid to Ukraine. NATO leaders to meet in Brussels to discuss measures as Russian troops advance towards Kharkiv. Israel's Prime Minister says Hamas's elimination is an imperative for an alternative government to emerge in Palestine. Bharat Pavilion has been inaugurated at the Cannes Film Festival. Renowned filmmakers and industry leaders celebrate the essence of Indian cinema. Well, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif of Pakistan on Thursday announced that Pakistan will privatize all state-owned enterprises with the exception of strategic entities. The announcement was made after a review meeting of the privatization process of the loss-making state enterprises, and it broadened its initial plans to sell only the loss-making state firms to shore up its shaky finances. In another development, the former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has been granted bail in an Islamabad case on land corruption charges, but he's going to stay in jail because he's serving time in some other cases.
Amid economic woes in Pakistan, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif on May 14 announced decision to privatize all state-owned enterprises with the exception of strategic entities. Shahbaz Sharif said that all of the state-owned enterprises will be privatized whether they are in profit or in losses. Pakistan has listed 25 entities and assets on its privatization list, including Pakistan International Airlines or PIA. A majority of the entities are in the power sector, including 4 power plants, 2 of which are over 1200 megawatts, as well as 10 generation and distribution companies. The list also includes the valuable Roosevelt Hotel in New York's Manhattan and 2 insurance companies. The announcement came a day after an International Monetary Fund mission opened talks in Islamabad for a new long-term extended fund facility. IMF had issued a warning that downside risks for the Pakistani economy remained exceptionally high. Pakistan's Finance Ministry expects the economy to grow by 2.6% in the fiscal year ending in June, while average inflation for the year is projected to stand at 24%, down from 29.2% the previous fiscal year. According to a report by Pakistan think tank, debt taken by Pakistan from abroad has increased 12 times in the last 12 years. Pakistan's foreign debt amounted to $124.5 billion, which is 42% of its GDP. Amid high inflation, protests were held in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir over high prices. 4 people were killed and over 100 injured. Later, the protest march was called off after the Pakistan Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif approved a grant of $86 million. Farmers in Pakistan too are angry over government's policy on import of wheat. Pakistan People's Party chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari on Wednesday demanded the government to lift ban on export of wheat for the benefits of farmers. At political front, former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan was granted bail in Islamabad on Wednesday on land corruption charges, but will have to stay in jail to serve time in 2 other cases. Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
And let's bring in Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat, expert on geoeconomics, to help us understand what's happening in Pakistan. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, is this a case of selling the family silver, or is it, a proper economic reform?
I think it's more a case of ad hoc selling of the family silver, frankly, because no sooner had the Prime Minister announced that all enterprises, regardless of whether they are loss-making or profit-making, would be privatized. You've had a full-fledged disagreement between the current finance minister, Mr. Aurangzeb, and the former finance minister, Mr. Dar, who happens to be the current foreign minister. And both of them have said, for example, that there is no clarity. Mr. Aurangzeb has said there is nothing like strategic, and he appeared to be contesting his own prime minister's words when he said that there is nothing like strategic. Either all enterprises will have to go under the block or none at all. I think the bottom line, Mark, is that this is a $350 billion economy, but which has a foreign external debt of $125 billion. And that is unacceptably high for a country which just enjoys only 2% growth and which whose forex reserves are only 1.5 months worth, so 6 billion. So it's a combination of all factors coming together. I think the writing has been on the wall for a long time. So I think some things, some enterprises like the Pakistan International Airlines will doubtless be privatized, but I am extremely doubtful about whether they can do the same with a number of companies which produce power. Because as Mr. Imran Khan has said from the jail, if you have things like power whose prices increase or tariffs increase, then the population cannot take it. Inflation is already running at 20%. So I think you will have those issues. I think the last point I want to make is that this has also been done with a view to effecting or influencing the visiting IMF delegation. The IMF delegation is currently in Pakistan, and there are tough negotiations for another, what is known as extended fund facility from the IMF. The previous one, $3 billion, is about to be finished. So this may also be done with a view to impress the visiting IMF delegation that, listen, we are very serious this time in trying to privatize state-owned enterprises.
But Ambassador Mohan Kumar, is the Pakistan private sector in a position to absorb all these entities?
No, it's not. And that is the cruel irony of it all. Really, there is no realistic option left for Pakistan except to begin with loss-making enterprises immediately and then move towards other enterprises whenever it's possible. One of the foreign consultants, for example, has said that there is an enormous number of state-owned enterprises for a small economy like Pakistan. There are just way too many enterprises, which constitute almost 50% of GDP. That is just way too much. So they will have to privatize. I think the real question is, will there be a consensus to privatize enterprises belonging to the power sector, to the power distribution companies, and so on? Because those are sensitive issues. You have the currency depreciation, and you have the dollar at 305, 310 Pakistani rupees. Remittances have taken a hit, and inflation, as I said, is running high. So in those circumstances, if the government has to avoid street protests, and Imran Khan has already warned the government of street protests if power tariffs are increased exponentially. But if you privatize power companies, the power tariffs will increase. So that is the kind of catch-22 situation in which Pakistan finds itself today.
So a final question, does this create, another power center? I mean, we know that there are already a deep state. We're creating another power center with the corporate sector now becoming more political, let's say. And what impact will this have on democracy?
No, I think the current government, whichever way you look at it, will have to take these tough decisions because the deep state and the military has very cleverly distanced itself from it and said, this is your problem, you resolve it. But I think the moment you have street protests and you have people on the roads and law and order breaks down, then I think the deep state and the military will step in. For now, everybody, including Imran Khan, is happy to leave this problem in the hands of Shahbaz Sharif. You became prime minister, you wanted the chair of the prime minister, you cope with it. That's what everybody is saying now.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, for helping us understand how the Pakistan economy is working at the current time. Let's move on then. Sri Lanka is in a discussion with India to establish an arms manufacturing unit in the island nation. Sri Lanka's State Defence Minister Premitha Bandara Tennakoon said that discussions are ongoing at the moment and that India is to set up a small arms manufacturing unit. Those discussions are ongoing.
Bilaterals there is an official creditor committee which has been formed. They are looking at it. We have individually spoken to all the countries, including China and India. Overall, they are happy with the parameters which have been given by the IMF, but there are some nitty-gritties to be sorted out. We expect that to be signed during the month of June, hopefully.
Well, today marks the launch of the PhonePe, an Indian digital payments and financial portals services in Sri Lanka. The High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, highlighted that this launch, along with the introduction of UPI, is part of the broader agenda of connectivity between the two countries. Emphasizing the importance of digital transformation, Jha also underscored India's commitment to bringing similar advancements in Sri Lanka. Additionally, India aims to introduce its digital identity project and extend its broader digital public infrastructure to the island nation. The U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, Donald Lu, expressed the United States' commitment to rebuilding trusts with Bangladesh during his visit to Dhaka. Addressing tensions from the past year, Lu emphasized the importance of promoting free, fair and non-violent elections while acknowledging the need to focus on the future. The U.S. reaffirmed its support for Bangladesh's pursuit of a prosperous, secure and democratic future, emphasizing transparency and accountability in governance. Well, coming up on DD India News Hour. The Government of India hands over the first set of citizenship documents under the CAA. The Bharat Pavilion is inaugurated at the Cannes Film Festival.
Cannes, the famous city on the French Riviera, the 77th edition of the Cannes Film Festival is here. So soak into 12 days of world cinema and the hottest fashion trends. The famous 24 steps leading to the Palais des Festivals, where most of the cinema at this festival is screened, are beckoning. Join me, Munmun Bhattacharya, as I take you through all the buzz around the festival and on India's participation in it, only on DD India.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. The government of Nepal has unveiled its policy and program document for the upcoming Bikram Samvat financial year 2081-82, projecting a robust economic growth rate of 7.3% over the next 5 years. The President Ramchandra Podel emphasized initiatives to support microfinance borrowers, including refinancing and loans restructuring provisions. The government also has outlined initiatives for climate change mitigation and disaster risk reduction, advocating for access to climate finance and diplomatic efforts to secure financial assistance from international funds. The Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs, Narayan Kaji Shrestha, has underscored the long-standing friendship and cooperation between Nepal and India at the third series of lectures honouring the former Ambassador and Foreign Secretary Professor Yadunath Khanal. Highlighting the salient features of Nepal-India ties, Minister Shrestha emphasized dialogue and diplomatic channels as addressing unresolved bilateral issues. Professor C. Rajamohan, the keynote speaker, also stressed on the need for a pragmatic approach to global challenges and has suggested learning from Beijing's diplomatic strategies. The lecture series aims to enhance thematic knowledge and discuss foreign policy practices as informed by the Foreign Secretary Seva Lamsal. India's Ministry of Home Affairs on Wednesday handed over the citizenship certificates to 14 people under the Citizenship Act. Now, the Union Home Secretary Ajay Bhalla handed over the citizenship certificates to some applicants in the capital, New Delhi. The Home Secretary congratulated the applicants and highlighted the salient features of the Citizenship Rules 2024. The Government of India had notified Citizenship Amendment Rules 2024 on the 11th of March 2024. In the wake of unprecedented weather events worldwide, climate scientists are sounding the alarm on the accelerating pace of climate change and its profound impact on global weather patterns. From scorching heat waves to devastating floods and ferocious storms, communities across the globe are grappling with the repercussions of this on the planet.
Summer 2023 left its mark as the hottest season in the Northern Hemisphere in the past 2000 years. Researchers revealed that summer temperatures over Northern Hemisphere in 2023 were 2.07 degrees Celsius higher than in the pre-industrial period. This exceeds the Paris Agreement's target of limiting temperature increases to 1.5 degrees Celsius. A study in the journal Nature indicates human-caused climate change pushed northern summer highs well beyond anything seen in 2 millennia. A large wildfire is slowly approaching the major Canadian oil sands city of Fort McMurray, and around 6,000 people in 4 suburbs have been told to evacuate.
Wildfire MWF-17 is still out of control, and its last known size was 9,602 hectares, but we know that it has grown since this size estimate was taken. The wildfire grew significantly to the northeast yesterday and continues to grow in that direction today.
Earlier, firefighters battled a large wildfire heading towards the remote western Canadian town as winds and dry tinder conditions threatened to spread the flames further. Meanwhile, the federal government last month said Canada faces another catastrophic wildfire season as it forecast higher than normal spring and summer temperatures across much of the country. Across India, various regions are experiencing diverse weather patterns. India Meteorological Department predicted that heat wave conditions are likely to hit across northwest India, including in Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh till May 18. IMD scientists said that there is no possibility of rain for next 5 to 6 days in the 3 states.
हमारा पूर्वानुमान है 16, 17, 18 मतलब 16 तारीख से हीट वेव के कंडीशंस जो है आपको पंजाब, हरियाणा और चंडीगढ़ के कुछ एक पार्ट्स में आपको ऑब्जर्व किए जाने शुरू हो जाएंगे। 17 को इसकी इंटेंसिटी और भी बढ़ जाएगी और 18 तारीख को आपको सीवियर हीट वेव के भी कंडीशंस ऑब्जर्व किए जा सकते हैं।
The weather body has also issued orange alert and warned of severe heat wave conditions for the West Rajasthan from May 17 to May 18. South Haryana on May 19 and in isolated pockets of Punjab. Some Indianapolis roadways were flooded as rain continued to fall in the central part of the United States. According to local meteorologists, rain has been falling in the area for the past 24 hours, resulting in over 2 inches of rainfall. The flooding has slowed traffic, but no injuries or major incidents have been reported. The number of people killed by flash floods and mudslides in Indonesia's West Sumatra province has risen to above 50 and more than 3,000 people have been evacuated. Torrential rain on May 11 triggered a flash floods and landslides in 3 districts in West Sumatra province. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
The Bharat Pavilion was inaugurated on Wednesday at the Cannes Film Festival in France. With the theme Create in Bharat, the pavilion is named as the Sutradhara of the world. Now, the pavilion was inaugurated by the Secretary of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting in India, Sanjay Jaju, and the Ambassador of India to France and Monaco, Javed Ashraf. Well, in a conversation with DD India's Munmun Bhattacharya in Cannes, India's Information and Broadcasting Secretary Sanjay Jaju spoke on the new look Bharat Pavilion, its incentives, incentives offered by India for filmmakers, foreign filmmakers, to make films in India, and on Indian films at being the official selections for the Cannes Film Festival this year. Let's listen to what he said.
Joining us in Cannes is India's Information and Broadcasting Secretary, Shri Sanjay Jaju. He is heading the Indian delegation to Cannes this year in 2024. Welcome, Secretary Sir, to DD India. You inaugurated the Bharat Pavilion. It's a pavilion in a new avatar this time around, and you spoke about how we've borrowed from Natya Shastra this time around. Tell us, what does a pavilion in a new avatar really mean for India as a country, for Bharat as a country?
So, Bharat is not, in few years going to be the third largest economy in the world. We have the largest segment of our population living outside India. In fact, it's not just the economic ascendance that we are achieving, but at the same time, our soft power, our soft touch is also becoming and getting amplified all across the world. So we through the Bharat Pavilion, we wanted to convey that cinema or Natya Shastra goes back 2,500 years or even beyond, and that's how we picked up the theme from Natya Shastra. How this concept of Sutradhar started from our Natya Shastra, and all the nuances of filmmaking are actually spelt out in the Natya Shastra. And that's how, movies came to India, I think within a span of their inventions all over. Because, we have this whole culture of song, dance, drama embedded in our national ethos, in our DNA. And so we wanted to convey that through the India Pavilion and present a very composite picture, so that all the industry associations, film associations, all combine and join under this overarching umbrella of Bharat Pavilion.
Before I come to the issue of film facilitations by India, I want to talk about Bharat Parv. For the first time, a festival of sorts, which is an Indian festival, is being organized here by India. Why is that significant?
It's significant because it gives us an opportunity to not just showcase what we have in terms of our culture, in terms of our filmmaking culture, but at the same time, a complete tapestry of cuisines, dances, drama, songs, and entertainment that's available. So we wanted to bring that under one roof. So we've created this new event called Bharat Parv, and we're very happy that it will not just see participation of all those who are participating from India, but all those who are interested in India. Because the idea is to create in India. And when we say create in India, we are rolling out a red carpet to all those who have all the producers, the creators, to come and make films in India. We have the huge market for seeing films in our country, but at the same time, you have a lot of skill sets available. You have artists, you have production workers, you have crew available, you have post-production facilities available, and on top of it, we have also created a portal through which we give online clearances to all those who are applying to get permissions and incentives in an absolutely seamless fashion. So the whole idea is to create in India, for India and for the rest of the world.
Give us a glimpse of what the future really holds, because we already have seamless facilitations, abundant incentives, but what are we going to do to further liberalize this space?
So globally, if you look at it, it's a huge business. The media and the entertainment segment is a huge business. It's a segment that's also getting very heavily disrupted by because of the advent of technology. And it's important that India is an IT powerhouse for the world, and we leverage that situation and try and bring a lot of post-production activities, filmmaking activities to our country. And that's how we look at the visual effects and the animation segment to be a propeller for the global media and the entertainment segment. And that's how we are trying to position India as the hub for the activities that actually become part of this overall canvas.
Lastly, you inaugurated the Bharat stall, which is in a way an amalgamation of commerce and cinema. What can we expect going forward?
So filmmaking is an economic activity. I mean, it's a creative activity, but it's also an economic activity. A lot of money gets spent when you make films, and this it's important that this business remains remunerative, this business has returns on investment, and that's how this whole concept of creating marketplace, and in our own situations also creating film bazaars, where our producers, where our independent producers, small time producers are not just able to find buyers, they are able to get exhibitors, and this whole activity has huge employment and the economic potential. So it's important that we stitch all ends, and that's how we look at the marketplace being created here. And this is how we are going to also be looking at the International Film Festival of India, in which again opportunities will be provided to prospective sellers to come and exhibit their wares and try and get people who get enthused and interested in the work done by them.
Towards the end, we can't not talk about Indian films. All we imagine is light is in the competition section. Your message for Indian films?
So my congratulations. It's happening after many decades that we have a film which is in the competition section, and there are other films also which are being exhibited. At the same time, we have also created an opportunity of market screening for various films this time at Cannes. And the idea is again, to stitch the ends up and to fill the entire supply chain and the value chain, so that those who make films are able to find the market for their films and able to make money out of that, because that's what is ultimately going to create the economic multiplier for the segment.
Thank you, Mr. Jaju, for speaking to us on DD India. So that was a 360-degree view of Indian cinema here at Cannes with cameraman YK Loknath. This is Munmun Bhattacharya from Cannes for DD India.
Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, you can get the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen and download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.